She brought his pregnant mistress to their wedding registration, and calmly signed the bride's name as hers. 3 years ago she died carrying his child. But this time she returned, not to beg but to bury the man who once called her replaceable. There's a moment right before everything falls apart when time seems to freeze. I remember standing at the doorway watching Emily Parker cradle her rounded belly like it held the answer to every question I didn't want to ask. "I'm pregnant," she had said. "It's Ethan's." And just like that the past came crashing back. But I wasn't surprised. Not this time. In my previous life I had chosen to hide that moment, swallowed it whole like every other sacrifice I made for Ethan Cole. I went ahead and married him anyway. 3 months later, when I was pregnant and hopeful, he pushed me down the stairs and blamed me for Emily's death. Said it was my fault because I didn't tell him. Said I should have saved her. And just like Emily, I died, alongside my unborn child. But not this time. This time I had opened my eyes before signing away my future. This time I brought Emily back with me. I looked Ethan in the eye, my voice steady. "Your classmate is here. She says she's pregnant with your child." His face, so skilled at charm and manipulation, paled before flickering with something that almost looked like panic. He tried to cover it up with a chuckle, pulling me into the room like nothing had changed. "Susie, what nonsense is this? What classmate? I don't know anything about a baby." And then Emily appeared at the door. Pregnant. Radiant. Firking. I watched the way Ethan's hand slipped from mine like I was never there to begin with. His eyes softened for her, turned warm and bright in a way I had only ever imagined for myself. And in that moment, no matter how much I told myself I had seen it coming, my heart still splintered like cracked glass beneath too much pressure. He rushed toward her. "Emily, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you say you were coming?" She gave me a brief glance, then lowered her lashes sweetly. "I went to the address you gave me," she said softly. But she was the one who opened the door. Ethan's fingers twitched at his side, his tell when he was about to lie. "Oh, I must have given you the wrong one," he said, brushing it off. "That's just a friend's place." A friend. That word hit harder than I thought it would. We were supposed to be engaged. We were set to register our marriage at the factory's group wedding. And I was still just a friend? No wonder I had never lived in that apartment with him even after our wedding in my past life. It had always been meant for her. "Emily, you probably don't have a place to stay yet, right?" Ethan said, turning toward her. "Just stay here for now." She shifted shyly, her hand on her belly. "Would that be okay? Won't your friend mind?" She knew what she was doing, framing herself as the innocent and me as the unreasonable woman standing in the way of a glowing mother-to-be. Ethan didn't even flinch. "Of course not. I don't even have a girlfriend." That did it. I left. I slipped out while they played house together, while she nuzzled closer and he laughed like I was just another guest who had overstayed her welcome. But I didn't get far before I heard his footsteps behind me. "Susie," he called out, jogging until he caught my hand. Wait. I turned slowly. "We're just friends," he insisted, breathing hard. "What happened between Emily and me, it was a one-time mistake. After graduation. We drank too much. That's it. I didn't know she was pregnant." "And now?" I asked, not pulling my hand away. "Now that you do?" He glanced down. "She's heavily pregnant. It wouldn't be right to leave her alone. She needs a place to stay. But I promise I still want to marry you." I pulled my hand back then. "Don't worry," I said quietly. "You won't need to lie anymore. It's not going to be me marrying you." His shoulders slumped with what looked like relief. "Susie," he said, smiling a little. "I knew you'd be reasonable." He was already turning back toward Emily before I could answer. That night, I returned to the small apartment I had once called home. The same one I used to share with Ethan before he got promoted and moved into the factory's married quarters. Alone. A neighbor mentioned someone had come by looking for me earlier, to remind me about the factory registration for the group wedding. Today was the exact day in my past life, when I had chosen to hide Emily's truth and gone to register our marriage anyway. But this time I didn't go to register my marriage. I went to register theirs. The next morning I walked to Ethan's apartment again. He had gone to work, but Emily answered the door, her long hair messily tied back, her hand cradling her stomach like it was her crown. "I have a question," I said. She blinked. "Yes. Do you want to marry Ethan Cole?" Her lips parted in surprise. What do you mean? Exactly what I said, I answered. Give me your documents. I'll help you register. Her brows furrowed in suspicion. Why would you do that? Because I'm done. An hour later I was at the factory's logistics office, handing over Emily Parker's name on the marriage registry. The clerk looked up puzzled. You're not marrying Ethan Cole? I shook my head. No. I have nothing to do with him anymore. But word travels fast at a factory. By afternoon Ethan came looking for me, full of pomp and entitlement. Susie, he said, arms crossed, I won't embarrass you. Since you already applied for the group wedding, I'll still go through with it. But from now on you need to behave properly. No more tantrums. I stared at him, my face unreadable. The man didn't even realize he wasn't marrying me. I don't like this attitude, he added sharply. You're marrying into my family. Follow the rules. What century do you think you live in? I asked, my voice steady. He smirked. In this family what I say is law. I gave him a long look. Then don't worry. You won't be seeing this face again. I turned and walked away. 3 days passed in a blur. I processed my external transfer and packed up my life. The factory was abuzz with excitement. Red banners, decorated buses, grooms in matching suits. Ethan stood among them, smiling broadly, waiting for his bride. And that's when my bus arrived. I was on it. From the window I saw his face twist in confusion as our eyes met. Then I shut the curtain. When Emily stepped off the opposite bus in a wedding veil, her belly visible even beneath the silk, Ethan's face went white. You? Why is it you? She smiled. This is my surprise for you. Aren't you happy? He stood frozen, confused, bouquet wilting in his hand. Where's Susie? He whispered. The factory supervisor tapped him on the shoulder, urging him toward the stage. His name had already been called. Ethan Cole, please proceed with your bride, Miss Emily Parker. What? He breathed. Why isn't Susie Summers the one marrying me? She filled the paperwork, the clerk replied. But she listed Miss Parker as your bride. Isn't she staying with you now? Pregnant with your child? Seemed natural to us. A loud buzzing rang in his ears. His hands trembled. He dropped the bouquet and ran. But by the time he reached my old work area, it was empty. Cleaned out. Panting, Emily chased after him. Ethan, what are you doing? He ignored her, racing to my old apartment. The door was unlocked. He stepped inside and froze. Everything was gone. Even the painting of us was ripped off the wall. A neighbor saw him and called out, "Oh, Ethan, you're here. Susie said to give you these." She handed him a box full of his belongings. She said she's remodeling and doesn't need any of your things anymore. Remodeling, he repeated, dazed. She sold it, the neighbor added almost cheerfully. This place is mine now. Ethan staggered as the door shut in his face. His eyes bloodshot, his mind reeling. Behind him, Emily tugged his sleeve. Ethan, we're legally married now. Susie Summers is your past. He turned slowly. You knew, didn't you? You knew she gave up her wedding spot for you and never told me. Her smirk was all the answer he needed. I'm carrying your child, Ethan. You're stuck with me. He couldn't speak. And somewhere far from the chaos, I sat on a bus, looking out the window with a peace I hadn't felt in years. The air was clear, the weight lifted. Miss Summers, someone said beside me, would you like the window seat? The view's better from here. I turned. A man smiled at me, familiar eyes and easy warmth. You're Susie Summers, right? The one everyone at the factory talks about. I stared at him for a beat. And you are? Nathan Moore, he said, voice low and pleasant. Nice to finally meet you. I didn't know what I expected from the man beside me, but it certainly wasn't Nathan Moore, factory golden boy, voice of the dreaded overtime announcements, and the last person I thought I'd be sitting beside on a transfer bus. His calm, self-assured presence felt jarringly out of place in the chaos I had just walked away from. You're that Nathan Moore? I asked slowly, narrowing my eyes. He chuckled, amused. Guilty as charged. Before you throw something at me, I was only reading what the office told me to. I didn't laugh, but my lips twitched in spite of myself. The voice that used to annoy me over the intercom now sounded oddly comforting. Maybe it was because he wasn't pretending to be anyone else. Unlike Ethan. Didn't expect to see you here, I admitted. Didn't expect to see you either, he said. Heard you were getting married. I tilted my head to the window. Just a rumor. He didn't ask more. The rest of the ride passed quietly. At some point, I dozed off with my head against the window, and when I awoke, the bus had reached the transfer station. Nathan was the one who nudged me gently awake. Hey, he said, his voice low and kind. We're here. We got off together. As I reached for my luggage, his hand beat me to it. He lifted my suitcase like it weighed nothing, placing it gently on the pavement. You don't have to. I know, he interrupted. But I want to. I gave him a cautious look. Why? Nathan glanced sideways at me, a half-smile forming. Because I think you've been carrying too much on your own. I didn't reply. I couldn't. We were assigned separate dorms in the same building, and our new department welcomed us with surprising warmth. For the first time in what felt like years, I didn't wake up bracing for a fight. I poured myself into the job. Early mornings, late nights, stacks of paperwork and inventory logs. The busyness kept the memories at bay. Nathan, as it turned out, wasn't just a good face and a smooth voice. He was capable, sharp, and respected. Whenever I struggled with the new system or equipment lists, he'd lean over my shoulder and offer help. Not in a showy way, but patient and precise. You always this calm? I asked once, after a long meeting where tensions flared and he kept everyone steady. He grinned. Nope. Just around you. I rolled my eyes. You flirt with every transfer worker like this? Nope, he said again. Just you. I looked away before he could see the heat rise in my cheeks. A month passed like that. And then one afternoon, as we were walking back from a supply inspection, I saw him again. He looked nothing like the man who once grinned confidently in a fitted suit at the wedding lineup. His collar was stained, his eyes hollow, his frame thinner. He hadn't seen me yet, until Nathan nudged me subtly and followed my line of sight. Ethan's gaze snapped up and locked on mine. And just like that, the illusion shattered. Susie, he called, his voice raspy. He crossed the road in hurried steps, ignoring the shocked looks from other workers. Nathan stepped forward instinctively, placing himself slightly in front of me. Ethan's face twisted. What are you doing with him? I crossed my arms. Why does it matter? He stared at me almost wild-eyed. You were supposed to be my wife. Not his. I scoffed. Then why did you treat me like a burden? Why did you keep Emily hidden away in your special apartment while I slept in that freezing room waiting for your weekly visits? Why did you make her your wife and treat me like a stranger? He flinched, speechless. Nathan tried to defuse the situation. Let's take this somewhere else, yeah? Ethan shoved him. Stay out of this more. Don't think I don't know why you transferred here. You've always had your eyes on her. I stepped between them before Nathan could respond. Enough. I turned to Ethan. You're right about one thing. Nathan did transfer here. But you know what? At least he respects me. At least he doesn't lie to me, cheat on me, or throw me down the stairs. Ethan froze, face pale. Nathan's head turned sharply. He what? I didn't answer. I was too focused on Ethan's expression, how he looked like he'd just been punched. You pushed me, Ethan, I said softly. 3 months pregnant and you didn't even flinch. He opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. Don't say you don't remember. Don't say it wasn't your fault. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. You don't know how hard I've looked for you, he muttered finally. How much I regret. Regret. I echoed. You're married. To the woman you truly cared about, remember? That was always the problem. I wanted to be loved and you just wanted loyalty. He stepped closer, desperate now. It's not too late. It is, I cut him off. Some things you don't come back from. I turned and walked away. Nathan fell into step beside me. You okay? He asked after a long stretch of silence. I didn't respond right away. No, I said at last. But I will be. From that day on, Ethan haunted the edges of my new life like a ghost. He tried to win over people at the factory, dropping hints that we were still involved. He began showing up at my workplace with flowers, announcing loudly that he was making things right. But I wasn't the same girl anymore. And I made that very clear. One afternoon, as he handed me a bouquet in front of a crowd of amused co-workers, I asked, "Aren't you still married to Emily?" The color drained from his face. I stepped closer, dropped my voice. Would you like me to report you for bigamy? He stammered, unable to respond. You didn't have a wedding ceremony, true. But the paperwork? The law recognizes your marriage. Don't test me, Ethan. He looked like the wind had been knocked out of him. Then his eyes narrowed. So this is about Nathan Moore. You've fallen for him, haven't you? I didn't even blink. If that's what you think, then go with that. It worked. The gossip died. Ethan stopped showing up for a while. And Nathan stayed. He didn't push. He didn't press. But he was always there, just close enough to lean on, never close enough to trap me. Until one evening outside the factory gates he waited. You've been avoiding me, he said, his smile soft. I've been dealing with Ethan, I replied. And now? I didn't answer. I just walked beside him, letting the quiet fill in the cracks. When we reached the dorms, he reached for the door, then paused. Can I ask you something? I nodded. That day at the bus station. When I offered you the window seat, his voice dropped slightly. You never really answered. Why did you let me sit beside you? I looked up at him. Because I was tired. And you didn't expect anything from me. His eyes held mine. I still don't. And then, without asking, without rushing, he reached out and gently took my hand. For the first time I didn't pull away. I stood there outside the dormitory building with Nathan's hand in mine and silence hanging between us like a fragile veil. His hand was warm, steady, not possessive, just present. And for the first time in a long, long while, I didn't feel like I had to make myself smaller. I slowly pulled my hand back. I'm sorry, I whispered. I didn't mean to. But Nathan just smiled, that calm, devastating kind of smile that didn't demand anything in return. Honestly, Miss Summers, I kind of wish you had meant it. I looked away, unsure what to say, but his next words stopped me. Shirley, Ethan wasn't wrong about one thing. I turned sharply, the air tightening in my lungs. I do like you, he said. And yes, I saw your transfer request the moment it was posted. That's why I applied for this reassignment. I blinked. What? He rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly sheepish. You probably didn't notice, but back at the old factory I always paid attention to you. The way you carried yourself. The way you held everything together even when no one else noticed you were falling apart. My breath caught in my throat. Nathan didn't step closer. He didn't press. He just stood there waiting, letting me hold the power of that moment. I gave a small nod, my voice barely above a whisper. Thank you for telling me. He smiled again, softer this time. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know. And with that he turned and walked toward his side of the dorm building, leaving me standing there under the yellow porch light, watching the first man who ever gave me the choice. The next few days blurred into routine. Ethan had disappeared again, either nursing his ego or wrestling with the realization that he had finally, truly lost control. I welcomed the quiet. Nathan and I settled into a rhythm that was easy, unspoken. He'd show up with coffee when I was buried in reports, or wordlessly hand over a warm bun when I skipped lunch again. No labels. No questions. Just presence. But I should have known peace doesn't last when your past refuses to die quietly. It was a Saturday morning when I opened the dormitory's common room door and found Ethan sitting on one of the couches, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Azuzi, he said, standing abruptly. I moved here. I applied for a transfer too. The words hit like a punch to the ribs. Why? I asked, already knowing the answer. Because I can't let this go. His voice trembled. I've been thinking about everything you said. You were right. I messed up. I thought I was being fair, balancing everything, but I see it now. I was cruel. I didn't respond. He stepped closer, hesitant. I want to fix things. Even if you never forgive me, I needed to be near you. To try. Try what? I asked. To rewrite the ending? I just want a chance, he whispered. Behind me someone cleared their throat. I turned and saw Nathan standing there holding a paper bag and coffee. Two actually. His eyes flicked to Ethan, then back to me. I can come back, he said. No, I said quickly. You don't need to. Ethan stepped between us. Of course he does. This is between me and Susie. You've inserted yourself enough. Nathan's gaze didn't waver. I think Susie can decide that for herself. I looked at both of them. One was my past, the weight, the betrayal, the heartbreak. The other was something new, uncertain but gentle. Steady. I'm not interested in a triangle, I said flatly. This isn't a game. Ethan, you're married. It was a mistake, he snapped. We didn't even have a real ceremony. It's not. It's legal, I cut him off. And I'm not interested in tearing another woman down, even if she did everything she could to destroy me. I'm not becoming you. He flinched. I told you before, go live your life. You and Emily made your bed. His voice cracked. But I didn't choose her. I wanted you. No, I said quietly. You wanted loyalty. I gave you that. And you spat on it. Then I turned to Nathan and nodded toward the hallway. Walk with me. We left Ethan standing there in the common room, his hands trembling at his sides. Nathan didn't say anything until we reached the factory gate. You handled that better than I would've. I gave a half laugh. It took 2 lifetimes to learn how. He looked at me sideways. You've changed, you know. I smiled faintly. That's the point. Nathan stepped in front of me, his voice low. So, where does that leave us? I looked at him, really looked at him. His messy dark hair, the slight crease between his brows, the way he always made space for me without making me feel small. I'm not ready for something new, I admitted. But I want to be. When I am, I wanted to be with someone who never made me beg for love. He didn't blink. Then I'll wait. As long as you need. That night I slept without nightmares. But the next morning the factory buzzed with chaos. A rumor spread like wildfire. Emily Parker had moved into a nearby apartment, and Ethan was nowhere to be seen. I didn't care at first. Not until the knock came at my door. I opened it to find Ethan hollow-eyed and holding an envelope. Done. I signed the papers, he said. I stared at him. What? The divorce, he clarified. Emily and I, it was a sham. She knew it. I knew it. She served her purpose, and now she wants nothing to do with me unless I help her raise the child. But I can't do it. Not like this. He handed me the envelope. I thought you deserved closure. I took it hesitantly. My fingers brushed his, but I felt nothing. No spark. No ache. Just silence. Thank you, I said finally. He gave a sad nod. For what it's worth, Susie, I hope you find someone who makes you feel seen. I didn't say anything. He turned to leave but stopped at the stairwell. And for the record, he added, I think it already shows on your face when you're around him. I didn't watch him go. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it. That chapter was finally over. I stayed in my room most of the day, the sealed envelope on my desk like a tombstone. At dusk I heard a knock again. This time when I opened the door it was Nathan. He didn't ask questions. He just held up a thermos. I made you soup. It's awful but it's warm. I laughed genuinely. He held it out then stepped back like always. But I reached out and took not just the thermos, but his hand. You were right, I said. About the soup, he joked. About me changing, I said. I'm not the same woman anymore. His smile softened. Good. You were never meant to stay where someone left you. And for the first time I stepped closer. Rested my head lightly on his chest. Felt his arms circle me, slow and careful. I think I'm ready, I whispered. For the soup, he murmured. I laughed. For you. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his eyes holding something warm, steady, and a little stunned. You're sure? I nodded. And then, with a tenderness I hadn't felt in years, he leaned down and kissed me. Not possessive. Not demanding. Just present. Like everything he'd ever done for me. His kiss tasted like sunlight after a storm. Patient. Sure. Nathan didn't try to claim me. He wasn't there to prove a point. He kissed me like someone who wasn't afraid of my scars. And that was the most disarming part of all. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine, both of us quiet in the shared space between breath and belonging. I've waited a long time to do that, he murmured. I smiled, really smiled, and for the first time in years it didn't feel forced. Worth the wait. I teased, my voice low. He chuckled. Susie Summers, you have no idea. After that night something shifted. Not in a cinematic rose-colored way, but in the soft, grounding way that told me I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living. Ethan's name barely crossed my mind now. I saw him around the factory sometimes, dragging his feet, gaunt and withdrawn. Emily had moved out after the divorce became public knowledge, leaving him with nothing but whispers and faded illusions. And I didn't feel a thing. Nathan and I didn't rush into anything. There were no grand declarations, no office-wide announcements. Just stolen glances over factory blueprints, fingers brushing when we passed each other notes, late-night walks to the vending machine that turned into quiet talks about everything and nothing. It was slow. It was real. It was mine. Then one rainy Friday, as the factory shut down early due to equipment checks, Nathan appeared outside my dorm with a small bouquet of wildflowers, scraggly, imperfect, and beautiful. "You brought me weeds?" I smirked. "Excuse you," he said with mock offense. "These are character-rich." I laughed and took them. "Where'd you get them?" "On the side of the road," he admitted. "But they reminded me of you." "Unkempt and stubborn?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "No," he said, stepping closer. "Survivors. The kind that bloom even when no one's watching. That made my chest tighten in that achy, fragile way, the kind that came right before tears." "Nathan." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath caught. "Relax," he said quickly, holding up a hand. "It's not a ring. Not yet." He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver necklace. No diamonds, no branding. Just a single charm etched with my initials. "For you," he said. "So the next time someone asks who you belong to, you can say yourself." I swallowed hard. "That's the most romantic non-proposal I've ever received." He laughed. "Just letting you know, when I do propose, it's going to be memorable." I took the necklace and fastened it around my neck with shaking hands. For a long time I had worn nothing but burdens and regret. This felt like peace. And then, like all peace, it was tested. On Monday morning I entered the factory to find a crowd gathered around the notice board. Whispers buzzed through the air like hornets. "Did you see her name? She's really coming back? Is she shameless or just desperate?" My stomach dropped before I even saw it. I pushed through the crowd. There it was. Reassignment approval, effective immediately. Emily Parker, assistant to the department head, logistics division. My eyes locked on the paper. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. Nathan appeared beside me, his jaw tightening as he read. "She's working under you?" I asked, stunned. He didn't answer. Just clenched his fists. We both knew it wasn't a coincidence. "Then let her try," I whispered. That day, Emily entered the logistics office in a prim lavender blouse and soft curls. She looked around like the world owed her something. And when her eyes landed on me, she smiled, faint, insincere, pointed. "Miss Summers," she said sweetly. "What a coincidence. I didn't expect to see you here." I smiled back. Most rats don't expect to find the cat waiting. Her smile faltered. Nathan cleared his throat behind me, breaking the tension. "Emily, I'll be assigning you to assist with inventory verification. You'll report to the field teams daily. Susie, you're on procurement. No overlapping responsibilities." Emily blinked. "You mean I won't be working directly with you?" Nathan didn't flinch. "No." She turned back to me with wide eyes. "Did you have something to do with this?" "No," I said, leveling her with a cool look. "Your past behavior did." Emily's lips parted, offended, but before she could speak, I turned and walked out. That was my boundary now. I didn't engage with poison, I just outgrew it. Over the next few weeks, she tried everything. Getting too close to Nathan, spilling tea accidentally on my documents, spreading whispers to new staff about how I'd stolen her man. But nothing stuck. Her desperation smelled loud and sour, and most people could see through it now. Especially Nathan. One afternoon, after another failed attempt at flirtation, Nathan cornered me by the break room. "I'm giving her one warning," he said. "Then I'm speaking to HR." I touched his hand gently. "Let her burn herself out. We don't need to dirty our hands." He hesitated. "But she's targeting you." I looked up at him and smiled. "And I'm not the girl she once destroyed. Let her try. Let her see what happens when the woman she buried comes back stronger." The next week my promotion letter arrived. Susie Summers, Department Head, External Procurement Division. It was official. I'd outranked her. Outpaced her. Outlasted them both. Ethan found me in the parking lot that evening. His face gaunt, his voice hollow. "You're really not coming back, are you?" "No," I said simply. "I thought, Maybe if I cleaned up my mess. You created it, Ethan. I just learned to stop living in it. He looked away. I was young. I didn't know what I was doing. We're all young once, I said. But I never used that as an excuse to ruin someone. I still dream about you, you know, he murmured. I still wake up reaching for you. I stepped back. Don't. He swallowed hard. He doesn't deserve you. Then maybe that's the difference, I said. He doesn't act like he's entitled to me. That night, Nathan took me to the river that curved behind the factory campus. We sat on the bank, our legs dangling off the edge. He handed me a small folded note. I opened it. It was written in my own handwriting. Things I lost that I thought I couldn't live without. Beneath it, a single line. And yet here I am. I looked at him, confused. I found it, he said softly. You dropped it the day we met on the bus. I kept it, because I wanted to make sure you remembered. Tears welled in my eyes. Not from sadness, but from the simple, stunning fact that someone had seen me. Held on to me. I want to make something clear, Nathan said, turning to face me. My heart stopped. I didn't just transfer here for a crush. I came because I saw your strength. Your clarity. The way you refused to let pain define you. That's the woman I fell for. Nathan. He stood and reached into his coat pocket. My breath hitched. He didn't pull out a ring. He pulled out 2 plane tickets. To anywhere? I asked. To Paris, he said. A design conference. They need procurement leads to work with luxury textile vendors. I was going to go alone. But then I thought, maybe this new chapter should start with you beside me. I stared at the tickets. Then at him. And then I said the thing I never thought I'd get to say again. Yes. I want to choose where I go. When I go. No more following. No more transferring for someone else's benefit. My voice didn't shake when I said it. That was how I knew I meant every word. Nathan didn't flinch. Didn't protest. He just looked at me with something soft and steady in his eyes. Susie. I never wanted you to follow me. I wanted you to walk beside me. That line, it undid me. Not because it was poetic or grand or perfectly timed, but because it was real. Because it was the first time in my life that a man hadn't expected me to bend myself into something smaller, quieter, easier to love. I took the job. They gave me a corner office. The view wasn't much, just rooftops and sky, but the desk was solid wood, the title embossed on the door, and for once when someone said Miss Summers, it wasn't followed by a smirk. It was followed by silence. Respect. I was scheduled to return to the States at the end of the quarter. 3 months to build connections, streamline procurement, and bring in results that spoke louder than legacy ever had. Nathan stayed on the Paris project as a team liaison, and somehow we found ourselves moving through the city like we belonged to it. We lived out of suitcases but made our own little rituals. Sunday markets for fresh bread, Thursdays by the Seine with lukewarm coffee and crumpled spreadsheets, late-night laughter as we tried to navigate the apartment's ancient water heater. I kept waiting for the sky to fall. But it didn't. Instead, something else happened. Ethan emailed me. Just 3 words. Can we talk? I stared at it for 10 minutes before deleting it. No reply. No reaction. 2 days later, Nathan found me sitting by the window, quiet, unreadable. He emailed, didn't he? He asked. I nodded. Are you okay? Yeah, I said. That's the strange part. I actually am. He sat beside me, fingers laced through mine. You don't have to keep looking over your shoulder. I know, I said. But I think I needed him to try again, just so I could say no. Nathan leaned his head against mine. Closure is a hell of a drug. I smiled. And this time I get to choose the dosage. The final week of the summit, the factory hosted a formal gala. Black tie, silver cutlery, champagne that bubbled like stardust. Nathan showed up in a tailored navy suit that made me forget how to blink. You clean up well, I murmured. He offered me his arm. Wait until you see yourself. I stepped in front of the mirror. The gown was slate blue, sleek and sleeveless. My hair swept up, lips a muted crimson. I looked like the version of me Ethan never bothered to see. The room paused when we walked in together. Not because we were dramatic, just because we were present. We didn't cling. We didn't pretend. We just moved through the room like we'd always belonged. Halfway through the night, as I stepped out onto the terrace for air, I heard footsteps behind me. Not Nathan's. I turned. And there he was. Nathan. Wearing the same suit from our rehearsal dinner 3 years ago. Like that would mean something now. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I tried calling, he said. I saw. I sent an email. I deleted it. He took a shaky breath. I didn't come to beg. I had to see you. One last time. His voice had aged. There were lines around his mouth now. His eyes weren't cruel anymore, just empty. You saw me, I said. Tao what? He swallowed hard. You look happy. I am. With him? He asked, tilting his head slightly toward the ballroom doors. With myself, I said simply. He flinched. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't reply. I thought I was making the right decisions back then. Balancing everything. Protecting what mattered. I let out a soft, bitter laugh. You were protecting yourself, Ethan. That's all it ever was. He didn't deny it. You used my kindness like a currency, I continued. You cashed in my loyalty, my sacrifices, my silence. You made me feel like I was only good for holding your secrets. He looked down. But here's the truth, I said. You didn't break me. You woke me up. Ethan looked at me like someone watching a dream slip through their fingers. Is there really nothing left? There is, I said. There's relief. That you're not mine anymore. His breath caught. And then he nodded. I deserve that. For what it's worth. For what it's worth, Ethan said, voice low. I'm glad you found something better. I studied him in the soft terrace light. His suit too familiar, his posture too late. There was no satisfaction in watching his regret. No vindication. Just closure. I stepped forward only far enough for him to hear every word. It was never about finding something better, Ethan. It was about realizing I deserved more than the bare minimum. His shoulders slumped, as if the weight of everything he had taken for granted had finally begun to settle in. I don't expect forgiveness, he said after a moment. You already have it, I replied. But that doesn't mean you get me. He looked at me then, really looked, and I knew he finally saw it. The woman who would never be his again. The woman who didn't break when he left. The woman who built herself from the ground up, with no one's permission. I hope you become the man you weren't for me, I said gently. But I won't watch it happen. And then I turned and walked away. He didn't follow. I stepped back inside the ballroom and spotted Nathan immediately, standing by the bar, sipping from a low glass of wine, eyes scanning for me. He straightened when he saw me coming. Okay? He asked, his hand brushing my waist lightly as I drew close. I nodded. Done. He smiled. That sounded final. It was. Good, he said. Because I've been waiting to ask you something. My brows lifted. You picked now? At a company gala? Felt appropriate, he replied with a smirk. Since the last time we were at one of these, I didn't even have the courage to offer you a drink. And now. His eyes locked onto mine. Now I have this, he said and slipped a small velvet box into my hand. But wait, open it later. I don't want to steal the night. I stared at him, the weight of it warm in my palm. You know, I've never said yes to anything just because it came in a pretty box. He leaned close, whispered, that's what makes you unforgettable. And just like that he walked away back into the crowd, giving me space. I waited until I was alone in the hotel room that night to open it. No ring. Just a folded slip of paper inside. I don't need an answer now. But when you're ready I'll be right here. Just like I've always been. And back home the factory had changed. My office was freshly painted, my nameplate finally mounted in brass. People stood a little straighter when I walked by, not from fear but from acknowledgement. I was no longer the girl who waited for approval. I was the woman who made decisions. Nathan returned 3 weeks after I did, paperwork in hand and a quiet question in his eyes. He didn't rush me. Never had. But the moment I saw him at baggage claim I didn't hesitate. I ran to him. Right there in arrivals, in front of the confused security guard and the blinking crowd, I kissed him like I'd been holding my breath for years. He laughed into my mouth. I'll take that as a yes. Consider it notarized. We didn't announce anything to the factory. It wasn't anyone's business but ours. I wore no new ring, no flashy sign of possession. Just the necklace he gave me, always hidden beneath my collar, right over my heart. That was enough. Until one Friday afternoon when I stepped into my office and found a letter on my desk. It wasn't signed, but the handwriting was familiar. To the woman who taught me what love never was. I stopped reading there. I tore the letter in two, then in four, then into pieces so small no apology could be stitched back together again. I threw them into the shredder and turned to my window where Nathan stood in the parking lot, leaning against his car waiting for me. Not demanding. Not doubting. Just waiting. And suddenly I was done waiting too. I walked out of my office and didn't look back. That weekend, we drove 2 hours north to a small coastal town I'd once mentioned in passing during a late-night conversation months ago. Nathan remembered. He always remembered. He booked a cabin on the cliffs, whitewashed, cozy with creaky floorboards and a wraparound porch that faced the endless stretch of sea. We didn't talk much that first night. We didn't have to. We fell asleep to the sound of waves and woke up tangled in each other like we'd always belonged there. On the second morning I stepped outside wrapped in a blanket, coffee in hand, and found Nathan sitting on the edge of the porch, sketching something in a small notebook. "What's that?" I asked, settling beside him. He turned it toward me. It was a rough sketch of a house. One story. Large windows. A garden out front. "For us?" I asked. "If you want it." I stared at it for a long moment, the simplicity of it breaking something wide open in my chest. "Why me?" I asked softly. Nathan set the pencil down. "Because you left when it was hardest. Because you chose yourself. Because you weren't waiting for someone to rescue you. You were just waiting to remember you never needed rescuing at all." I reached for his hand. "And if I say yes to this? To all of it?" He turned to me. "Then I'll spend every day making sure you never have to doubt that choice." I kissed him slow. Intentional. Like I was planting roots. The proposal came a week later, on a Tuesday while I was wearing mismatched socks and microwaving leftover noodles. Nathan knelt on the kitchen floor, ring in hand, grinning like a fool. I nearly dropped my bowl. "Seriously?" I gasped, laughing. "You said make it memorable. And you chose instant noodles?" He shrugged. "You love them. Seemed appropriate." I set the bowl down, walked over and took the ring without a word. Slipped it on myself. He blinked. "Is that a yes?" I looped my arms around his neck. "It's a what took you so long?" He kissed me until the microwave beeped and the world faded behind us. They say revenge is best served cold. But I don't agree. My revenge was served warm. In the laughter that came easy, in the house built from trust, in the name I kept for myself untouched by regret. Ethan faded into the background. Emily moved out of state. The past remained exactly where it belonged. And I kept blooming. The day I married Nathan Moore it rained. Not a torrential storm, just a quiet, consistent drizzle that painted everything in shades of silver and sage. The kind of rain that made the grass smell clean and the world feel hushed, like it was holding its breath for something sacred. We didn't have a grand venue or a velvet aisle. No chandeliers. No guest list in the hundreds. We got married in the garden of the little cliffside house Nathan designed for us. Now fully built, with his sketches framed on our bedroom wall and my worn-out post-it still stuck to the fridge. It wasn't a traditional ceremony. No giving away. No speeches from people who once doubted me. Just a circle of our closest friends, a few coworkers who had watched us grow, and a borrowed white dress I picked for its pockets. I wore no veil. I needed no symbolism to cover who I had become. Nathan waited at the archway, dressed in charcoal gray, his sleeves rolled just enough to show the scar where he once burned himself fixing my broken desk lamp. My heart didn't race when I saw him. It settled. And that was how I knew. I stepped barefoot onto the soft grass, the earth damp beneath my toes, and walked toward the only man who never asked me to shrink to fit his life. When I reached him, he didn't ask if I was ready. He knew I was. The officiant began, but I hardly heard her. All I saw was him. And all I thought about was this. How strange and beautiful it was that everything I thought had ruined me had, in fact, rerouted me, to this exact moment. When it was time for vows, Nathan didn't read from a card. He looked straight at me and said, "You saved yourself long before I ever showed up. But I promise to be the one who never forgets that you did." A tear slid down my cheek, not from sorrow but from the sheer weight of being seen. "I promise," he continued, "to walk beside you, never in front, never behind. I won't be your armor. I'll be your mirror, the kind that doesn't distort." I laughed through the tears. He always knew how to say the things I didn't know I needed to hear. When it was my turn, I held his hands tightly. I used to think survival was enough, I began. But you taught me that peace isn't a prize, it's a right. And love, real love, doesn't come with terms and conditions. His eyes glistened. I promise to never be less than who I am and to never ask you to be less either. I promise to grow not just with you, but for me. We didn't say forever. We said every day. And then, beneath that soft silver sky, we kissed like we were already home. The reception was just as quiet. Soft jazz, mismatched chairs, cinnamon cake from the bakery down the hill. Nathan made his infamous roasted lemon chicken. I insisted on pouring everyone's drinks myself. At one point, I stepped away from the crowd and into the living room, where my old photo albums were now tucked in a bookshelf beside Nathan's design books. I pulled one out, the oldest one. The one that still had photos of me and Ethan, our factory IDs, group lunches, blurry Polaroids of the apartment he never let me live in. I flipped to the page with the engagement photo. His arm draped around me, my smile a little too wide. Without ceremony, I tore it out, folded it once, slid it into the fireplace. The flame caught quickly. It turned orange, then gold, then ash. When I turned around, Nathan was leaning in the doorway, watching me silently. I don't need reminders anymore, I said. I never thought you did, he replied. But it's good to see you know it now, too. We didn't say anything else. Some moments don't need sound. Only understanding. In the months that followed, I traveled for work more often: Shanghai, Toronto, Berlin. Nathan handled local partnerships, and somehow, despite our schedules, we always found our way back to each other's orbit. I kept the last name Summers. Not out of rebellion. Not because I was holding on to the past. But because I had finally made peace with my own story, and my name carried that. I don't want to be erased, I told Nathan one night as we lay in bed, the wind howling against the windows. He kissed my shoulder. You were never meant to be. I took on my new role as head of global procurement before the end of the year. My team tripled. So did my confidence. I was invited to speak on panels, featured in trade journals, and asked to mentor younger women at the factory who were once overlooked, just like I had been. I always said yes. Because someone had to. Because someone once didn't. 1 year after our wedding, I received a package. No return address. Inside was a single item, a weathered envelope. I knew the handwriting. I considered tossing it unopened. But something in me said, one last door. I opened it. It wasn't a plea. Or a profession of lingering love. It was a photo. Of a child. And a note beneath it written in shaky pen. His name is Elias. I think he deserves to know the truth when he's older. But I won't tell him about you unless you want me to. Emily. I stared at it for a long time. The child had Ethan's eyes. And my jawline. I did the math. It tracked. I closed the envelope and tucked it in a drawer. Not because I planned to respond. But because I believed in knowing your whole story, even the chapters you didn't write. Later that night, I told Nathan everything. He listened without interrupting. Without flinching. When I finished, he just took my hand and said, "You don't owe anyone anything." I nodded. But I'm not hiding anymore either. We never spoke of it again. Some truths don't require action, only acknowledgement. Years passed. The cliffside house grew cozy with time. Friends came and went. Promotions came and went. Scars healed. Old names faded. I became the woman I once prayed to become. And one day, as I stood in the middle of our kitchen, surrounded by warmth and light and the smell of rosemary and clean floors, Nathan came up behind me and rested his chin on my shoulder. "You still think you don't need rescuing?" he asked playfully. I grinned. "Every single day." He wrapped his arms around me. "Good. Because I never fell in love with a damsel. I never needed a knight. Just a witness," he murmured into my ear. "To your rise." I turned in his arms and kissed him. And just like that, I realized. I hadn't just taken back my name. I had written an entirely new one. In light. In love.